Hello. I see some of you are watching, but I just want to make sure that you can hear me. So if you hear my voice, please comment so that I know you are here. Then I will just start the presentation today. Okay, so finally I see some of the comments. So I will start the presentation. Welcome to the presentation today. Today we'll talk about how to continue your front-end development even when your backend dies, right? So today is all about like how to have use some library to properly start or mock your backend API server, so that if there's anything happen to it, you no need to worry about it. Okay. So let's start the presentation. So first of all, let's see like what kind of problems that by having those kind of stubbing or mocking library would help. So first, if your backend is very unstable, so in some cases, like maybe your backend is using some legacy application, which sometimes in testing environment is not very stable. Sometimes it's just down or no reason, and then you need to wait for your backend guy to bring it up. So this is one possible problem. And second is that your backend is very complex, so sometimes it's very hard to set up locally. So this is also another problem that we face when we do front-end development. So the third problem that we have is our because we have new features coming in, our front-end and backend need to develop features concurrently. So while the backend is not ready yet, your front-end you need to have the service available for you to do proper development. So yeah, this is also one of the problems you may face. And lastly, you may have like you clone your repo locally, then you want to start, and you sometimes you don't have internet connection. Maybe you subscribe to a sucky data plan like me. So yeah, so this may be a problem you face. So when you have this kind, the problem that I just mentioned, sometimes is a bit tedious. That you need to make sure your backend service is always available. You have connection to it. Of course, you still have workaround, right? The workaround is like you kind of like comment out the API calls, and then you just return some hard coded JSON. So that actually could works, but that is not that may cause a problem later on, because you need to remember you need to uncomment the code out, and so which is not very nice, because the goal of us is many times we want to make sure we don't change our code just because we want to do stubbing. We should just code as if the production behavior, and then we use some tools to help us to do the abstraction. Okay, so this is a problem of we depend on backend. So if you are new to doing front-end development, you may ask, hey, why do we always why is this a big deal of backend? The problem is today in most front-end application, front-end, as it says, is front-end. You only live in your user's computer. So it is not where you store the data. That's why we always need a backend to storing in the data and retrieving the data. So that's why in most applications, dependency of backend is inevitable. So that's why with the dependency of backend, and we have so many problems that may cause us problem. We have so many issues that may cause us problem. That's why we need a mock library that I'm going to discuss today. So today I'm going to discuss 3 libraries that you can use. First, the most popular, and it has been quite some time, is called JSON server. Okay. So what is JSON server? JSON server, as its name implies, you create a JSON file, then you can create a server. Okay. Let's see how we can do that. First of all, I want to show you an application that I have here. Let me just start. So JSON server has been quite a long time. I think, if not mistaken, when I start doing frontend development 2 or 3 years ago, people already recommending these tools. So it has been quite stable libraries, but in a short while we'll know like what is the limitation of this. So let me open my browser. So localhost 3000. So I have this front application. So if you attend my previous webcast, you'll see this is a Shopee. So it's quite a nonsense website, have a lot of nonsense. We even have a career page. So now I want to show you my career page. So my career page has a list of the job posting for this website. Okay, so I can refresh, and then so here I can see I have a list of career. No. Yeah, I have here. I have API calls that is calling. Let me zoom in a bit. That's calling this URL, which is some backend service I created, and then this is a response. Right, it's a list of the jobs in this website. So now I'm actually making the real API calls. So you can see if I click here, then it actually made a real API calls. So now we want to start this out. Okay, why? Because I don't want to dependent on the backend service. So we have installed a JSON server. So what I'm going to do is I install a JSON server. So you can see my package JSON. I have JSON server. Okay, and then I add an npm script. Okay, I call start mock JSON server. I specify my port number, and then I specify a file. Okay, it is mock db.json. So let's get db.json. So db.json is just a JSON file. It's a JSON file with a key called jobs. Okay, and then after that I provide a list. So this list is I just copy paste from my API call just now. Okay, I copy paste a whole response here, and then I'm going to start this JSON server. Okay, yarn start mock. So this will use the JSON file, and it will try to create a server. Okay, so it says localhost 4000 is ready. So let's open up localhost 4000. Okay, then we get this JSON response, which is what I have been hard coded in my db.json file. So the convention is that if you provide a JSON file with a key of jobs, this jobs itself will become your endpoint. Okay, so then the values there can be provided here. So the cool thing is it's not just about get. It actually also support all the HTTP methods. It support posts. So you can call post to this localhost 4000/jobs. You call post, then you provide the body of the job, then you add one record to this JSON. Then you can do a put, which is update. You can even do a delete, and then you will delete a record. So yeah, it's very convenient. So, but this is localhost 4000. But our application, if we refresh, we are still going to call. We're still going to call the ecomdb side, right? Yeah, because there's nothing changed our application yet. So we need to tell our application, hey, in my local, don't call the ecomdb endpoint. Call this localhost 4000. So how can we do that? If you're using Create React app, it's very simple. So we have an environment file which specifies what is the endpoint. So I can create a .environment.local. So if you use Create React app, you can just create this file and you say the endpoint you want to override. I'm going to copy paste this endpoint, and then I'm going to switch it over to localhost 4000. Okay. So to explain a bit how this works is by default, my application, I have this .environment file, which I specify all the API endpoints my application is going to call. And then I have this endpoint called React App Career Based URL, which is the endpoint that I had called. And in my code, I have this career.services. And then you can see my career.services is actually getting these constants, and then it make the calls there. Okay. So now I create a .environment.local file, and Create React will know if you have .environment.local file, you'll use a constant there to override what is in .environment file. So now we override the career-based URL constant to localhost 4000. Okay, after I will override, I need to restart my local server. By the way, if you have any questions, I'm going too fast at any point of time, feel free to ask question. There's no stupid question. Okay, so we will starting the development server. Okay, so let me go to my career page again. Let me refresh. Okay, so let's look at our URL. Now what we are calling is localhost 4000/jobs. Okay, so that's how we use JSON server. And yeah, technically, in short, how you use JSON server is you install the package JSON server, and then you create a file called you create a JSON file, and then inside there you put the data that you think your front end is expecting, and then after that you use some way, maybe your build tools or you use Create React, you have this environment local file to override the endpoints, so then your application will call this endpoint instead. So yeah, this is the first two JSON server. So if you have question, just ask for this JSON server. Now I'm going to go to the next library that we're going to talk about today, which is Mirage.js. So Mirage.js is a library that was created for Ember. So Ember is another front-end application other than React, Angular, and Vue. Ember is not as popular as those three, but the one I know is LinkedIn is using Ember. So yeah, they created this Mirage.js. Initially, it's only support Ember for them to do mocking, but after that, they realized actually all the tools they use actually can be abstract away to be generic and can be used by all the front application. So there was the start of Mirage.js. So Now I'm going to show you how to add Mirage.js into your application. So similarly, first thing we do is npm install. Okay, we install Mirage.js. And then after that, we create a file called inside a mocks folder. And then we import our Mirage.js. So there are quite some code here, but the key is Mirage.js. How you do it is you create one server, okay? You create one Mirage server, and then oops, you create one server, and when you create a server, you specify your routes, okay? So here you can say, hey, when the front end make API call to this endpoint. So if you remember, this endpoint is where we get the jobs, and then you pass it a function. Okay, this function accept two parameter. It accept a schema and it accept a request. So schema is what your data entity. Okay, so what are the schema in this in this of our endpoint? So that's why here I have a model. So where I declare what is my schema. So I say I have a job schema. Okay, that's how you know. And then after that, when in this function, we can also check, hey, in my request, do I have query parameters? So I know I have a query parameters. It can be a optional, it can be an ID. So if there's an ID, I need to filter my jobs, okay, where ID is equal to the ID that has been passed in. Else, I'm going to return all jobs. And then here we also say if there's any API calls start with this URL, then we are going to pass through. Means we just let it pass. We do not stop it. So this is the bottom part how we declare. But just like just now, the JSON server, we need some initial data, right? So this Mirage.js, it actually allow you to have some, they call it fixture, that allow you to create some initial data. So here I say my jobs model, I have some initial data here, which is in this file, which have a list of all the jobs. Okay, so this career.data.ts, it was used previously for my unit testing. Yeah, so since I have some more data here, I just import it. Okay, so you create a server and then you return the server. So this is how we initialize the Mirage.js. And then in our index file, we're going to import the create mode server, and then we check if we are in development environment or not. If we are in development environment, then only we create, so that we don't start in production, right? Because this is only purpose is for local development only. So let me refresh this page. So one thing you realize, hey, there's no request. Okay, there's no request. But we can look at our console. So the console here have Mirage get this endpoint, and then it shows what is the response, what is the request. So this is if we make in this page, we make the API call to api.jobs. So if we click into one, then we make API calls to ID 403. Okay, then it will respond to us a specific jobs. So yeah, so this is Mirage.js. You compare to JSON server. Now JSON server, we need to start a separate separate server. And then we need to tell our front end, say, hey, instead of making the API calls to the real endpoints, make API calls to this local stub server. That was what we're doing with JSON server. With this Mirage.js, what we do is we just start the Mirage.js inside our front end code, and then this Mirage.js will actually like intercept all our API calls. So if it match the defined routes, then it will not make the API calls. It just return the response itself. So so this Mirage.js, at the end I will do a comparison. So no worries. But so far, as you can see now, compared to JSON server, Mirage.js is not so straightforward, because they have this kind of concept like model, they have this kind of concept of routes, there's concept of serializer, all this kind of thing. So the reason why Mirage.js is more complex than JSON server is because JSON server is kind of like it has a default behaviors, and then it's a bit hard to override default behaviors, because it's just say, hey, you use a JSON file, this is my convention I define for you. On the other hand, for Mirage.js, it is more flexible. You can actually declare yourself how you want to handle the requests. You can even this Mirage.js, you can even has some kind of ORM, which is like you can have relationships between your data. So which is something is like it's not so easy to do in JSON server. So Mirage.js is can be achieve more advanced use case. It can be make your API calls more realistic, more keeps to your actual server response, but it has certain learning curve there. So this is a base comparison. Then we'll go to the third library I'm going today, the last one, which is mock service worker. So mock service worker, you know, from the name itself, you kind of know what it is. It's also used for mocking, but it's used service worker to do the mocking. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with service worker. I'm not very familiar, but I know the fundamentals or the ideas is that service worker is like, web worker. So web worker, normal, we use web worker, we can make, we can like have some complex operations. Then you can post some requests to this web worker, and then web worker will do independently. So it's a different thread from your JavaScript. So this service worker is almost like web worker, is on different thread, so you cannot directly access it from your JavaScript code, but it can like intercept all your network requests. So service worker is used heavily for application that want to support offline. So like when people want to make API calls to backend, it actually intercept and it will check, hey, is backend accessible? If not accessible, then we will show some fallback UI or show some old data. So yeah, that's a service worker. So let's have a look of how this mock service worker do the mocking for us. So we'll go MSW, and then I'm going to open. Yeah, I'm actually showing same application. I just have multiple folders so that I don't need to run npm install during this webcast. My internet really sucks. So yeah, while running, I will continue describing how to add mock service worker into an application. So the first one, of course, we npm install MSW. Okay, we have MSW here. And then after that, we just like the Mirage.js, we create a mocks folder, then we create a file. Okay, so this is where I declare my MSW. So mock service worker, you can use it to mock REST API calls. You can even use it to mock even what do you call GraphQL. Yeah, so it support both. Mirage.js and JSON server definitely doesn't support GraphQL. Mirage.js, they didn't say anything, so I guess they also don't support. So now waiting my application to start up, but we can have a look first. So this MSW, it exposes a few function. So the first function is REST. So the REST is where you can declare what is the endpoint and what is your handler. Okay, it's just like the routes for Mirage.js just now. So we say REST.get. It means if there's an API get call to this endpoint, then this is your handler. And then at here, then we can we get a request object, response object, and then we get this JSON utility. So request object, we can extract out the query, and then after that, at the bottom we can see, hey, what is if an ID available, then I need to filter my data here. Else, I will just return the whole data. Okay, very straightforward. And then my server started. No. Okay, so let me go to my network tab. Okay, let me go to my career page. Okay, so you can see my career page now. I just returned two jobs. The reason why is because here I only have two jobs here. Okay, that's why you can only see two jobs. And you can see it's actually making the call, and you have response here. Yeah, but it's being intercepted by our this mock service worker. And we can click one, then yeah, it will show this particular one because this is also being intercepted because it fit the URL, which is api.jobs. So yeah, this is mock service worker. As you can see, mock service worker is very simple, but with simple, it means it doesn't do many things for you. So if you see, like I have this kind of logic, like I want to filter, I want to have some initial data, then I need to manually create it and manually do a filtering. If you want to do multiple, like the relationship between data, it's gonna a lot of code to write. So yeah, the good thing of MSW compared to what do you call the Mirage.js just now is Mirage.js, when we make API calls, right, you cannot see in the network tabs. It's actually being intercepted and totally no network calls. You can only check by using check your console log. And the good thing about MSW is it is actually allow your front end to see is almost like a real network calls. It just intercept in behind. Yeah, so it's easier to inspect and everything. So yeah, that's the third library, MSW. So this is the comparisons that I try to summarize of the three libraries. First, in terms of easy to start, I think all three are quite easy to start. I spent, I think, 1 or 2 hours to just to prepare for this presentation. So now it's even easier for you to start because you just can copy my code. So yeah, then the second one is ease to customize request handler. Like you have requests coming, how you want to handle it, what kind of logic you want to do, what kind of JSON response you want to do. So for JSON server, you need to write some Express code, okay? Because JSON server is based on the Express.js framework. Yeah, if you know you're good in Express.js, it's not so hard, but I'm not good at, so I don't like to write it. And then Mirage.js and MSW are very easy because technically you need to define your own request handler. And the third is can we reuse this mocking in our unit test? JSON server cannot because you are technically starting another server, and yeah, you can't do that because you want to have a unit test that is fast, that can run concurrently. Yeah, this separate server cannot help. Mirage.js, yes, it is supported out of the box because just now how we start our server is we call the start server, right? So actually after start server, you also can shut down the server. So a very common pattern people use Mirage.js is when you write a unit test call, you have a before each, after each. So you can do the before each start server, after each stop server. Yeah, so it will intercept all your requests. So it's very good. Then the third one is MSW. Is it can we reuse it in unit tests? Not out of the box. But if you go to check you go to the repo and search their issues. They have a link to a Kensi dots implementation that actually even able to mock ingest. But yeah, you may need to like copy paste the code and tweak a bit. So ability to reuse in unit tests. Then the next one is advanced data operations. So you want to do advanced filtering, advanced linking, all these things. JSON server doesn't help you with you. So actually it's very hard because you are not just need to know how Express works. You actually need to know how JSON server works and you want to override it. So it's very hard. I try. And then Mirage.js is very it's support out of the box because it has its own ORM system. So you can create a model, you can link a model like one-to-many relationship, one-to-one relationship, all this kind of thing. And MSW, there is no support, but because it's just function, so you can write your own customization. The last one is debugging. So for debugging, JSON server and MSW are simple. Why? Because you can they really go through the network calls, so you can inspect it from the network tabs. But for Mirage.js, it's not. You need to check the console log. So on this point, I think Mirage.js is not so good. So yeah, I don't have slide anymore. So in conclusion, which one is a best to use? I think JSON server is not the library you want to use because it has very strong conventions, which I think your backend very likely you use different data structure. So yeah, JSON server I would not recommend it. Mirage.js and MSW it depends on whether you want to spend some time to learn about these tools. If you just want to have a few simple mock, I think MSW is the way to go because it's very simple and it is easy to debug. But if you want to have like you want to stop all your endpoints and you have many endpoints in your front end, then I think Mirage.js is a way to go because it actually can remodel how your backend works. Like you have relationship between entity, you can update in one point and it actually propagate out to all the endpoints. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna share today. If you have any question, please quickly ask. Else later you have our question, I will just end this. You can actually not necessarily you need to ask related to today's webcast. You can ask any random question except my salary. Okay, so now I will go through the question. We have one question. May I know where do you set the endpoint name jobs for the MSW? Yeah, let me go to the MSW. So this is how we declare the MSW code, right? So you can see here, when I call get, I pass this environment variable React career base URL. So this is the environment variables that React inject for me, which is here. React app career based URL. Yeah, because as you can see, right, the this file is actually included as part of our index here. It's actually included here. So so yeah, because it's part of the front application, all the environment variables available in your front application will be available for MSW. So that's why I'm able to start the endpoints. Okay, thank you, Vira, for your question. I think I don't have question anymore. So I think that's all for today. So I think after this, our next webcast will be just fundamentals, which I'll slightly go through. I will go through about what are the utility in Jest, how can you use Jest to write unit tests for your JavaScript, and the type of assertion that available in Jest, and what is the right way to use snapshot testing. So yeah, if you love unit tests, you can just remember to subscribe to my channel, and or you follow our Facebook page or Meetup. Okay, that's all. Thank you.